Why, hello there. My name is Mountain, and today I'd like to talk to you about this. And what is this, you might ask? Well, this is the Heimplanet Transit Travel Bag V2 in 28 liters. As the name suggests, it's the second iteration of Heimplanet's transit line of travel-oriented bags. And it's made by a company called Heimplanet, who is a Hamburg, Germany-based manufacturer of backpacks, tents, and other kinds of outdoor and travel equipment. In terms of this bag, I would say its main claim to fame is this relatively tight and dense layout that lets it work very capably as a Goldilocks bag, which is to say a bag that is large enough to one bag travel with, but can also be appropriately sized and functional enough to use as an urban use EDC bag once you arrive at your destination. Conversely, I would say maybe its main disadvantage is its relatively small size and narrow kind of shaping, along with some of its design decisions, means that this bag actually holds less than you might expect for its rated 28-liter capacity. Now, frequent viewers of my channel might remember that I've talked about Heimplanet in the past when I talked about the Heimplanet Monolith Daypack 22-liter, which I keep as my always packed, ready to go, one bag travel Goldilocks bag. So I got this bag a few weeks ago when it was first released, and I've been testing it actually fairly heavily over the past few weeks to see if it can replace the Monolith as my always packed, ready to go one bag travel bag. Now, one word of maybe caution before we get into this video. I don't consider a few weeks worth of use enough time to really give a full-fledged review of this bag or any bag, but a lot of people have been asking about this bag. So I wanted to treat this more sort of like a first impressions based on some weeks of use, and I'd like you to keep that context in mind when I talk about this bag subsequently. Somewhat bizarrely, I couldn't find a clear articulation of what's different between this bag and the original V1 on Heimplanet's website, so I'll answer that question for you. The answer is, other than the obvious, not much. So this is the V2, and this is the V1 Transit Pack. The V1 Transit Pack was available in one color and one size, and that's what I mean when I say the obvious. It's Castle Rock Gray, which is this kind of heathered gray material, and one size, 34 liters. The V2 is available in two sizes, 34 or 28, and two colorways, Castle Rock Gray and Black. This is the Black 28-liter V2. Other than that, the differences are relatively minor. Very briefly, it includes a different way of printing the logos, slightly different zipper pulls. The V2 has these sort of aluminum custom zipper pulls on the exterior zippers. The V1 was heat shrink tubing. It has slightly different attachment points for the optional side straps. This is the V1. You can see it's sort of an aluminum toggle that fits between two Hypalon loops. This is the optional side strap. And you can see the same laddering system used for the sternum strap. Again, sort of a toggle that pushes through here. The V2, though I don't have the optional side straps for the V2, you can see that's just a single piece of Hypalon tubing, and what happens is the C-clamp or C-hook kind of fits on the other side, on each side like that, and you can see that actually in use here on the sternum strap, where it's sort of like a C-hook that kind of clamps in on both sides here. I consider the laddering and sternum or the strap attachment system on the V2 to be superior to the one on the V1, but in reality, it's not that much of a difference. Other than that, the differences are very, very minor. If you were to open the bag on the interior, you will find that the V1 still has the same kind of heat shrink tubing on the interior zippers. On the V2, which I'll show you later, they're just naked little zipper pulls, like there's no tubing on here. And then finally, the lining material of the V1 is a little bit slightly coarser material. The V2, which I don't even bother to show you because it's so minor, is slightly softer to my touch. It doesn't really matter. Finally, I found that the frame sheet on the V1 seemed to be softer and more flexible than on the V2, but that might also be due to the size difference as well. Obviously, it's a little bit easier to bend like bigger pieces of plastic like this. So that's really the major differences, or minor differences as they were, between the two generations of this bag. If you own a V1 and you're wondering if you should upgrade or not, the answer is no, unless you really want, obviously, Black, or you want the smaller 28-liter size, in which case you have to upgrade. Obviously, if you're buying it new, you should get the V2. Don't bother to get the V1. And that's really it, I think. So with that having been said, let's talk about who this bag is for and who it's not for. It's for one bag travelers with a very tightly dialed loadout, especially if you're traveling on like budget airlines or those airlines with really strict carry-on, limitations. This bag is small. It should pass as your personal item or your carry-on item in virtually any airline as long as you watch the overall weight. It'll slide into underneath the seat in front of you, an overhead bin next to you, whatever. No problems. This is a small, tight bag. It's also going to be for people who like the one-bag travel, black travel bag aesthetic, but want something slightly different in terms of the execution and details and aesthetic than your Goldilocks or your Manals. In terms of who it's not for, look, if you're bringing the kitchen sink or you don't have a really kind of compact, tightly dialed loadout, this is going to be a tough bag for you to make work because it is pretty tight. Like, it actually holds like only stuff here in this main compartment, which I'll show you later. So that's a lot less than you expect for 28 liters. I even had trouble fitting like my exercise shoes in here, which is something I usually carry in my one-bag travel loadout. I normally don't have a problem with that. On top of that, if you're a person who is looking for an EDC use bag first that can also do secondary duty as a travel bag, this is not going to be a great choice. It will work if your primary purpose is travel with some limited EDC use at the destination as secondary, but the inverse is not going to be as good. There are better normal EDC use bags out there for less money that I would recommend for you. So let's look at the exterior of this bag. First thing you're going to notice is the material it's made out of is something called Dico shell. I think it's Heimplanet's, I'm assuming it's proprietary, kind of combination of nylon and I think like a polypropylene. It's something they call dope dyed, which I think is supposed to make the fabric dyeing more robust or deeper or something like that. It's got this interesting soft feeling to it, which I haven't really seen in other bags. It's different than Cordura nylon. It feels kind of, I don't want to say organic, but it does feel soft, but it still looks high-tech. It looks and feels both high-tech, but also a little bit soft and sort of organic, which I find very interesting. The downside of this is it does get a lot of like dirt very easily on there. And due to the relatively open weave, you get sort of like some pilling or some fuzz very easily. It's kind of hard to see that on camera, but you definitely do notice it up in person. You can see like if you kind of just scratch it, you right away kind of damage that little fuzz surface of the fabric. Anyway, interesting choice of fabric. Interestingness doesn't stop there. I've already mentioned some details like the aluminum, custom aluminum zipper pulls and some of the Hypalon materials here, custom aluminum hardware as well here. Just overall, like some really interesting center closure fidlock buckle for the sternum strap. Just some really interesting kind of details in terms of the material and fabric everywhere. Logo is also similarly kind of interesting. This sort of, monocolor silver reflective print logo here that's both subdued for a big silver thing, yet like distinctive on here. And I think that's sort of the story of this bag is like a lot of like little interesting details that when you look up close, you're like, oh yeah, that looks pretty nice. At least for me, design and aesthetic is in the eye of the beholder, but I happen to like it. I don't see a lot of the design cues on this bag in other bags that I have reviewed here. Similarly, kind of up here, you get this sort of silver logo geometric bit there. So let's talk a little bit about the silhouette of the bag. You'll notice, as I mentioned, it's a very compact and tight silhouette. It's comparable in size to something like the Evergood CPL 24, which I consider one of the best urban use clamshell bags out there. You can see it's the same size and height. This one's obviously packed out more, but very similar here. Rides very nice and tight to the body due to these kind of load lifters and the overall kind of shaping of the bag. Speaking of which, you can see the bottom of the bag is rounded like this, pushing the load up closer and tighter to your body. You also see that the bottom of the bag is rounded in the corners, and the same thing up at the top, and the same thing sort of in the profile view of the top of the bag. Now this is very, very like nice for making the bag compact and dense, and I find kind of generally pleasurable to wear for a bag like this. You also get that exacerbated by the kind of load lifters that help pull the load close to your body like that. Now the main downside of that, as I mentioned, is the bag will not stand up. It'll always flop over. It also does tend to slide a little bit, though not as bad as some other bags that are made of a more slippery material. And because the bag loads in a kind of reverse clamshell style, you will, as I mentioned, spend a lot of time with a bag like this. It'll pick up some dirt. Talking about the pocketing of the bag, you're going to notice this water bottle pocket. It's very tight. I could not find it usable for water bottle when the bag was packed out. And this bag is packed out like I just came back from a trip with this. So it's packed out just how I would have it. Also, the strap that runs across the water bottle pocket makes it very hard to use for that. But I was able to fit like, batteries or something like that in there. The other thing I don't like about this water bottle pocket actually is it has this exposed chain stitching here. There are ways of integrating the top rubber into a mesh water bottle pocket that don't require exposed stitching. I don't like stitching like this because once it kind of catches and rips, you'll just kind of get the whole string, the whole thread will kind of run and it looks kind of crappy. Looking at the front of the bag, you're going to notice that it has a front slash pocket like this. In here I just have like a toothbrush kit and like a battery kit, and then it's pretty bare on the inside here. Now the thing that I'll mention, this pocket runs around right here to around right here, so not the full length of the front, but just like from here to here. Maybe it's easier from here to here. Now one of the interesting things I found with this bag is when you load this front pocket, because it's a reverse clamshell and because the bag is so tight, the contents in this front slash pocket actually intrude on the main packing volume when you're trying to pack the bag. And it's noticeable, it actually does take away some space. I work around it by packing this pocket last, but it's sort of annoying and I've never really had that problem with any other bag that I've owned. The next first order pocket up here is this front dump pocket. It's quite a deep pocket. It runs down to around right here. Around right here. And I like it that it has this built-in simple key loop, which I use to actually hook my keys into. I just take a carabiner and I clip it into, just clip it into here. So in here I have like my keys, I have a phone, I have some travel earpods, and then I have a bunch of like everyday EDC kind of carry, like a pen, chapstick, tool, flashlight, lighter, etc. I really like this pocket because it's quite deep, quite capacious, and very easy to dump stuff into, but the addition of this little loop here makes it easy to fish your keys out as soon as you need them. And it's very easy to access when the bag is kind of set down on the ground in front of you. You can just, if it's set down on the ground in front of you, you can still zip it open, get what you need, dump it in and out, etc. And then the last quote-unquote first order pocket that you may notice is this big one that runs down the distance of the bag like this. And this actually lets you access the interior contents of the bag without needing to open the main clamshell. I find this one to be a little bit annoying in that when you load out this front pockets, this lid becomes very, you can sort of see it's very ponderous and bulgy, and it's kind of hard to use like this. I just find it flops around a lot. The main use case I found for this is if I had like packed up my bag and I was ready to go and I was like, oh, I gotta brush my teeth, I can kind of whip my DOP kit out without needing to flop open the whole bag, brush my teeth really quickly and put this back in. I did not find it very usable in an EDC use context, which is to say, when I was at my destination, I was trying to use this as my EDC bag and I wanted to get something from inside the bag. Normally you would just zip open this and reach inside the bag, but again, because of the flop and just the overall kind of interior construction of this bag, I didn't find that to be very usable or very useful. But I'm still glad that the function exists. Next, I want to talk a little bit about the zippers, since I'm kind of opening up compartments here. I've already talked about the kind of aluminum hardware, which I think is kind of nice. And I like that these zippers are very low profile. They're nothing fancy. They're no like waterproof YKK aqua guards or anything like that. They're simple reverse coil zippers, which I like. They operate very smoothly. You get little interesting details like this Hypalon zipper garage here, which again is just kind of what I like about Heimplanet in general. And the main zippers the main zippers for the two compartments are lockable, which I like. I don't think you would ever check in this bag, but I like that these are at least lockable. It's something that surprisingly a lot of travel bags don't actually do for some reason. Next, let's talk about the straps of the bag. I already mentioned this front compression strap here. I like that, first of all, I want to call your attention to this nice little like double, V or this V shape attachment for the buckle, very low profile, but it's just a very interesting detail. Built-in strap keepers, and all the straps on this bag have built-in strap keepers, which I love. And this one kind of pulls forward, and it's interesting, like it compresses the load in the main compartment. You'll notice this thing doesn't run all the way to the back. It's the front clamshell that compresses, and that helps tighten up the load, like I said, when you're wearing it and bring it tighter to your body. And I like that sort of you know, you can have that option here. The one thing I don't like is when it is kind of pulled in tight like this, it does dangle a little bit, but you know, I guess it can't really be helped in that respect. There is an optional area here, an area to add the optional separately sold accessory strap. You can either run them across here to tighten the load further. This one you'll note connects to the back of the clamshell, so it compresses both compartments of the bag, not just the front. Or you can run it across the front like this with two, you know, each strap here, unless you drape a jacket or attach something else to the front like that. If we talk about the side handle of the bag, I love bags that have side handles, and I think all travel bags should have side handles. Actually, I think all EDC bags should really have side handles. It makes manipulating the bag very, very easy. Like this, you can pick it up off the ground, carry it on your side very quickly, you know, throw it in an overhead bin, whatever you need to do. Now, this handle is very low profile, or it's not really, it's relatively low profile, made out of the same material as the bag, Daiko shell. Has a little bit of padding in it. No reinforcement bar here or anything like that, though these parts are bar stitched or bar tacked or whatever. Honestly, you'll get some bag sag you can notice when you lift up the bag, especially because this bag is a very dense bag, so you get a lot of weight in a small area. But for like short distances or manipulation of the bag, I think this is perfect. Same deal with the top carry handle strap. It's not like super like big or noticeable, but it's very easy to grab and manipulate, and you can have, you know, you could throw the bag around, you get the little bit of bag sag, but for short distance manipulation, it's perfect. I think it's a really great, well-matched design for the two, you know, kind of handles, I guess, for this bag. The other main straps of the bag are, of course, the shoulder straps. I like these shoulder straps a lot. And what I like about them is that, first of all, it's a relatively thin but dense foam. Simple kind of neoprene, I guess, esque kind of backing. So no like air weave or super porous thing back here, but it actually carries the load pretty well, and it, you know, really does snug this bag tightly to your back, which is very unusual for a travel bag. And so I enjoyed that about this straps. They're not edgeless. You do get this sort of sewn over edge material, which I guess I don't mind. Some people like edgeless straps. For me, I found these perfectly comfortable. The thing though I really like about these straps here is just the delightful use of materials, right? So you have the Daiko shell, you have this Hypalon, you get this edge piping, you get the aluminum, you know, G hook or aluminum C hooks, you get like a little bit of silver reflective printing, this Hypalon part for the attachment of the buckle to the strap, this nylon strapping, very thin, low profile nylon strapping, black on black on black on black, but just these different textures and materials and geometric shapes. And it's just, for me, I find this really delightful. I really enjoy most of the construction of these shoulder straps. I did talk very briefly about the laddering system for the sternum strap. The sternum strap itself I also found to be somewhat delightful. And first of all, the custom aluminum hardware, the built-in kind of stretch section for the sternum strap. I love sternum straps with that. The center push fidlock buckle, very easy to put on and off. Kind of the integrated rubber Heimplanet logo bit here. The built-in loop so you can, you know, easily pull it shut or tighter or looser with your finger, and the integrated fixed strap keeper. Like, just a lot of care and attention went into the detail of the manufacture of this low profile but extremely functional sternum strap. I like that. And that's kind of what I mean when I say like this bag has a lot of small details that are very well executed. Again, you know, like look at this Hypalon attachment part. I really like they could have just sewn a nylon strap and been done with it, but you know, put a little bit of Hypalon on here. The nylon straps for the bottom have, again, a built-in finger loop so you can snug them tight, and built-in fixed strap keepers. The only part of this maybe shoulder straps that I wasn't 100% sold on were these load lifters. So on the one hand, let's talk about the good parts of them. Again, I like this little delightful V shape here. I like the low profile nylon. I like the built-in strap keeping. And I like that, you know, even though they do kind of dangle a bit, like they're relatively small and unobtrusive. I feel that these are relatively well-refined shoulder straps. You contrast them to something like the big honking, simple, you know, brutish monsters you get out like a Mystery Ranch bag, where they are undoubtedly functional, but it's like these big ugly things. And then you look at this and you're like, oh yeah, that's a really well-designed, you know, kind of load lifter. Now, the downside is, like with any load lifters, you get this weird arch in the shoulder strap when you're not wearing it. When you're wearing it, it's great. It snugs the top of the bag closer to you, which is necessary because the bag extends up beyond where the shoulder straps attach. But you get these permanent creases very quickly in the shoulder straps. If you leave it like this, it kind of just sticks out, sort of ugly. When you flip it around on the bag, on its back to kind of stick it under a seat in front of you, you just exacerbate that situation even more. You get kind of this weird bend. So the only other option then is release the shoulder strap load lifters every time so the straps lay nice and flat, and you can flip it under the seat in front of you, but that's very, very fussy and nobody's gonna do that, I think, all the time. The other thing is, as I kind of mentioned, though there are built-in, you know, strap keepers that only extend down to here, so you end up with a little bit of flappiness. This is the only part that I would say is not 100% refined in terms of strap management, but overall, I still feel like these shoulder straps are very, very well done. For comparison, by the way, this bag, I think the current weight is 9.6 kilograms or so of the contents I have in here, because I have a camera and a couple lenses and stuff, which is a little bit heavier than usually I would carry, I would say, or well, yeah. But I found these straps very, very comfortable. It's also helped a little bit by the fact that it has a relatively stiff frame sheet, which I'll show you later. The last kind of straps maybe to talk about on the back is this area here for the optional, no, excuse me, not optional, for the included waist belt. I don't think a bag of this size needs it, but if you do, it comes with it. Comes with this simple, like, kind of C aluminum hooks that just fit in there, and you can use it for stabilization, but it's very simple nylon, no elastic or anything to it. So it's not gonna bear weight, so that's why I removed it. If you choose to leave it on, I found it relatively low profile. Last thing, on the exterior of this bag before we move into the inside, you'll notice this kind of raised, padded area on the back. So it provides some cushioning and some sweat absorption for this bag, as opposed to just like the back of the bag. But, you know, it's not like there's no air channels through here. You get this nice geometric shaping that, you know, Heimplanet has this kind of interesting patterns on much of their many of their backpacks or tents and such. The last thing I'll kind of draw your attention to here is this part ostensibly is supposed to be a luggage pass-through. It's just way too stiff for me to envision ever using that, especially when this bag is packed out. It's also weird because, like, if you were to do it, you just have all this, like, the trolley handle would go up through here and the whole thing would flop forward. They also show on their website you can kind of like stuff somehow stuff the shoulder straps in here. Like, for me, this is a terrible, like, this is terrible. Like, who's gonna do that? I don't know. It's just, this looks worse than, I think, just leaving them flopping around. Flipping the bag around, let's get into the inside of the bag. This bag opens with what I think is called a reverse clamshell, and what that means is most of the capacity of the bag is on this main compartment as opposed to the rear. With like a normal clamshell, like most of it's in the rear, and then you just open the top, which is pretty light and floppy. So let's talk a little bit about maybe the main compartment first. Well, before we talk about the main compartment, these two pockets on the inside are made out of this nice stretchy material. In here I have like a passport, some receipts, pen, whatever. And then here I have like some masks and a wallet and I think some coins or a pen or something like that in there. Both of these pockets are very capacious actually. They have stretch. There is also built in some dimension here on this back panel with a kind of elastic to kind of help that. And then they have capacity above the zipper as well as below the zipper. So there's, you know, here's the zipper, but this pocket is actually here. Here's the zipper, but this pocket is actually here. I found them to be very, very capacious, and there is some space on this rear part here, the rear part of the clamshell, that actually allows it to accommodate some bulk that intrudes on the main compartment. You can already see, if here's the zipper line, we already have some bulk intruding into the main capacity here. One of the things is I found that these zippers pockets are very hard to access when you're, you know, using the bag in EDC mode, because if you think about it, the bag is like this, and you kind of have to like kind of wrestle it open and try and zip it in here, and there's no way you can get that bottom one. And then the problem is, because the bag is very ponderous in this reverse clamshell structure, it's a pain in the butt to open it up like this unless you're packing the bag. So in an EDC use, this is one of those design decisions I was talking about that I feel kind of impedes its usability as a bag in the normal urban EDC use context. Now, this reverse clamshell has some other implications as well. One of them is you can see there's a very unbalanced size difference between the front of the bag and the rear of the bag. And that means that you get this awkward kind of, it's hard to see because of the angle of the camera, but you see this awkward loading, pulling tension on here. And what that means is, let's go ahead and unzip this main compartment here. So this divider separates the main compartment from the back compartment. And it also tucks away, there's an area for it to tuck away on the bottom here, like this. I'll also draw your attention to some of this subtle geometric patterning on their interior fabric. Again, that's sort of one of Heimplanet's trademarks. So this bag is packed out exactly how I had it from a recent trip that I just got back from. And it actually has one notably less thing than I would normally carry, which is normally, if you watch my videos, I have like some gym clothes or some running shoes in a pouch in here as well. I couldn't make it fit in here actually, so I just didn't bring it. And that's surprising because it fits in something like the 22-liter monolith day pack, which again is 22 liters. And the reason for that, you're gonna see here, I'm gonna show you really quickly what I have here and I'll talk about why this does and does not fit. An air packing pouch with some clothes, a Bellroy City pouch for kind of on, when I don't need to bring a whole backpack, Sony A6600 with a 16-55 lens and a wide angle Sony APS-C lens, North Face pouch with some electronic cabling and such, a Bellroy DOP kit, which I've talked about previously. It's one of my favorite DOP kits, a Manfrotto little collapsible mini tripod, a North Face pouch with a few little odds and ends in here, and then a hair iron because you gotta look good or it don't matter. And you can see here when I empty this main compartment, you can already see what I was talking about, like the contents of that front slash pocket here, give you this weird lump, and it's very noticeable actually. Like it intrudes seriously on a very narrow capacity to pack. Now, what makes this even harder to pack is you can see the walls are a little bit floppy. They're not completely floppy, but they are somewhat floppy. And that means it's kind of hard because you're sort of like, first of all, you got this weird bulge. And so you're kind of putting the thing in here. You have to kind of hold the, the walls up as you're trying to pack out what's going on in this bag, basically. And as you're doing that, you kind of see it's a weird kind of tension. Like this keeps wanting to pull it down. And so you have some stuff sticking up here. It's not, fatal. It's not like you can't pack the bag. Obviously you can, but I just found it less pleasant to pack than I would have expected. Not impossible to do, but it's particularly noticeable when you're in a situation like this where we've got the bag fairly packed out, but you can see like it's sticking out and like way out over the sidewalls. The sidewalls are collapsing. Now, of course, what you can do is once you take this, into your divider, to its credit, it does a great job of compressing and stabilizing, not compressing, but it does a great job of stabilizing the load inside of here, right? Because it is stretchy, has this built-in kind of elastic and volume. And so when you do get it like this, it helps wrangle everything, right? Helps wrangle everything. And then you get like the bulge out here where now it's stabilized above the zipper line. So it does actually hold more than you would expect from these low sidewalls, but I found it kind of fussy and not that nice. I don't like having to, stuff everything and then having it bulge out like that. The other thing then you notice is you have, like I mentioned, this sort of lip here on the back compartment, which is designed to accommodate this sort of bulging part of it. And normally, if this had like some compression straps or something on here, what you could do is you could get this advantage where you actually compress the load of the front compartment independently of the back compartment that really lets you overpack a bag and kind of stuff it down and cinch it in. If you look at something like the Arc'teryx rolling duffel, whatever, 80 or whatever, 100, whatever they are, they have that kind of interior compression system which lets you really overpack a bag without straining the zippers. This one is too loose, so it doesn't have anything like that, but to its credit, I did find it actually relatively easy to close this bag. Like I actually was surprised. Like I don't have problems closing this bag, if I'm being fair. But as mentioned, notably, something I always carry is my shoe pouch with my running shoes. There's no way, as you can see, there's no way that that's going to go in here whatsoever. But it fits. If you watch my Monolith day pack video, you can see like I easily fit almost all of this and more, including those shoes, in the Monolith day pack with no problems, even though it's a smaller bag. It'll easily fit in like a 26-liter Go Ruck with tons to spare. So this bag's construction wastes a lot of space in the kind of asymmetrical split with the front clamshell, etc. Finally, let's talk about this back panel here. Now, it's relatively stiff, and because it has this computer compartment here, it's also relatively heavy. So I find that kind of unwieldy, if I'm being honest. And again, like that unwieldiness comes through most notably when you're trying to use this bag as an urban EDC use bag. If you're just throwing it on the bed in the hotel or whatever to pack once, it's no problem. But when you're out on the go and you're at a coffee shop, like it's hard to like manipulate this big floppy thing to get your computer out or to get these pockets. Anyway, laptop compartment has independent stretch here. This is a 13-inch MacBook Pro. It will easily hold a 15 or 16-inch. This front compartment also fleece lined on one side with a kind of fabric stretch. In this case, I have, I guess, a mouse pad for some weird reason, and Kindle, Amazon Kindle. And then in here you have two pen pouches, or two pen slots, I should say, excuse me. Two pen slots. Maybe it's better if I go like this. Two pen slots. I have a mild liner and like a James Brand Benton pen. And then I have a Bellroy note taker and a field notes. I actually found these pockets to be a little bit tight for like a note taker like this, but if you just had like a regular field notes, for example, it's very easy to slide them in without any problems. Personally, I feel like these are very hard to access along with these pockets when the bag is in quote unquote EDC use mode. And this is what I mean, again, some design decisions they made where like the front clamshell or reverse clamshell limits the capacity and makes the bag unwieldy to use. Like you can't get into those pockets, right? Like from up top. And it's so floppy and stiff and heavy that like, you know, it's really unpleasant to use in this way as an EDC use bag. Yes, you can theoretically like fold away this internal divider and try and access it from the front, but I actually found it really hard to like meaningfully get in there from that direction. So I don't know, those are just my impressions after a few weeks of travel with this bag. The one advantage maybe, I think, is that I believe bags like this, you can sort of use them, you know, run your computer through some airport security with it like this. I've always found that to be sort of at the whim of the security agents that usually make you take it out anyway. So just get yourself like a pre-check or whatever the equivalent is in your country. And maybe you don't have to worry about, you know, taking out your computer at all. So that's really it in terms of this bag. Like I said, there's a lot to like about it. Its denseness and compactness and tightness. I like some of the small design details and kind of, you know, aesthetic and execution. But it is very small. It is got some compromises due to its design decisions that make it a little bit less useful than it could have been as a travel bag or as a, you know, EDC use bag. But if you're in the market for a bag like this, what are some other bags that you might want to consider? Well, first and foremost, I've already talked about the Monolith Day Pack 22-liter. Go watch the video on this. I'll put the link in the bottom in the description below. If you want to know my thoughts on it, I like this bag more than this bag, even though I feel like this bag has some like more modern, better aesthetic designs in some senses. This bag is functionally much better than this bag here. I think it's also much cheaper, I believe, as well. Not everything is perfect about this bag. It's floppy. I feel the build quality is a little bit less than this one. Again, I really prefer this bag over this one for the Goldilocks travel bag scenario. Another bag that I think absolutely needs to be mentioned is the Bellroy Transit Pack. This is, I think, the 28-liter. There's also a larger one, a Transit Pack Plus. This bag is superior to this bag, full stop. It holds much more in a similarly tight silhouette. It's a great Goldilocks bag. It has better like pocketing and organization to it, actually. Where I would say this bag is maybe better subjectively to this one is I think the material choice is a little bit more organic and just feels a little bit more interesting. Some of the design aesthetics are a little bit more interesting. The Hypalon and stuff on this one. This one is like nylon. It's not bad. It's actually it's a very nice bag. But it's just a little bit more, I guess, like straightforward in its materials, but it does hold a lot more stuff and it's a lot more accessible. Even things like, for example, the externally accessible laptop pockets and fleece and all that stuff, I just think are functionally, functionally better than this bag here and more usable in a kind of Goldilocks scenario. It's a very good bag. I'm going to do a review of this one soon. Another common choice is going to be the GoRuck series. This is a random GoRuck GR1, the Huckberry GoRuck collaboration, so it's a slick version. This is a 21 liter. 21 liter is probably not going to, I might actually hold around the same amount as this one because of this one's inefficiencies. The 26 liters will definitely hold more than this, and then there's like a GR2 or whatever if you still want to. I think the GR2 is a little bit too big to use as a Goldilocks bag, but the GR1 26 liter, definitely usable as a Goldilocks bag, definitely holds much more than this. Downsides of the GR series versus this, it's just a kind of, again, this is the slick version, but the normal ones have like this tactical MOLLE webbing and stuff. This is just a very different aesthetic, very straightforward, tough materials in this Cordura ballistic nylon. This one's just got far more like, it's like Hypalon and designed and patterns and stuff. This is just like, oh, go run a GoRuck marathon with this thing. And then, I don't know, scale a compound or something. And that's it. I know this has been a very long video. I apologize. I wanted to really kind of cover all the different aspects of this bag and give a comparison with the V1 as well. If you have any questions about this bag, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. And if you have a bag that you would like me to review, go ahead and leave those in the comments below. And if I own it, I will review it. Thank you very much.